So, Mark, a lot of people ask me why I wear dark shirts on this podcast. And truth be known, I always stop and get a Wawa coffee on my way in. And sometimes, older guys, we have a little dribble on our chin that kind of works its way down. So you can't tell. Yeah, I might have dribbled today. I can't tell, and you can't tell because I'm wearing a dark shirt. And that, truth be known, that's the reason why.
Well, I wear dark too because when I first started doing like TV spots or whatever,
made you look thinner.
Yeah, well, my mentor in the business was as a writer was the Hall of Fame baseball writer Bus C. And he heard I was going on TV one day. He's like, "Hey, Marky," he always played. "Hey, Marky, you're going on Comcast or whatever I was going on."
Yeah.
I said, yeah, I'm a little nervous, a little excited. He's like, "Wear black or dark blue. It'll make you look thinner." So I said, "Oh, okay."
He's right. Well, anybody watching today, if Mark and I look thinner to you, please send us an email because it's very important for you. Anyway, Welcome to the Bird Brains with Ken and Mark, everybody. I'm ex-Philadelphia Eagles, Philadelphia Stars tight end Ken Dunek. My partner is Mark Eckel. He covered the Eagles for years with the Trenton Times and NJ.com. And we're going to talk about something special going on here. The Eagles won their 10th straight game, which is a franchise record, beat the Pittsburgh Steelers 27-13. A dominating performance that was actually even more egregious than what the score would indicate. It was a total domination, in my opinion, on both sides of the ball. The only thing the Eagles didn't do well, which is a little bit surprising, is that they didn't rush the ball that effectively. Saquon Barkley only had 65 yards rushing, although his backup, Kenny Gainwell, had 60. And,
where's he from?
He's from? Well, only the best athletes go to University of Memphis, Mark. You know
that's why I asked.
And then Jalen Hurts had 45 yards on the ground. So a really good attack. We got our passing game going yesterday. Hurts was 25 for 32, 290 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He did have a fumble early on, which is a little concerning. But let's talk about where the Eagles are at right now. We're going to talk a little bit about the playoff picture. What's going on, who's already qualified. Mark and I were talking before we started recording here that there's for the second year there's only one bye. The number 1 seed is the only team that gets a bye for the opening round of the playoffs, and that's a big deal. When you go through a 17-game season, 18 weeks including the bye week and playoffs, the bodies are feeling poorly at that point, and a week off is a really big edge for all teams. But, Mark, you watched the game. It was the national game, Tom Brady game. I'm not sold. $350 million. I don't know. I'd take half, and I think I'd do a much better job. But anyway, what is your opinion on what you saw yesterday at Link?
I was impressed. I know a lot of people are saying it was a dominant. If you look at numbers, yes, it was. But the play of the game, in my opinion, and it wasn't even the Eagles got a break and they fell on the ball, but it was a 1-score game, and the Steelers were past midfield, driving for what could have been a tying touchdown, and Najee Harris decided to play basketball with the football.
Yeah,
dribble it a little bit.
With a pitch that was right in his hands.
Yeah, I still don't understand the Eagles didn't force that. I mean, he just dropped it and it bounced and the Eagles fell on it. That was the game to me. Who knows what would have happened on that drive?
Mm-hmm.
The Eagles might have stopped them anyway, but that was the play of the game, I thought. But the Eagles, I'll be honest, I'll eat crow on this one. I picked Pittsburgh to win the game. I just thought the Eagles were due for a bad game. I mean, they had,
You see, and I love being right, especially 2 weeks in a row, so I can talk about it with you. But I said last week was a trap game, and I was right. They played lethargically against Carolina. I thought this week they were going to try to make amends with their passing game because they got so much heat during the week. They did that. Again, I mentioned Hurts had 290 yards in the air. A.J. Brown had 110 yards with 8 catches and a touchdown. Devontae Smith, 11 catches, 109 yards and a touchdown. Really good things happening with the air attack. I thought Jalen, for the most part, other than coughing up the ball on that
was a great
run.
play by Watt too.
It was. And how good is he, by the way?
He's the best defensive player in football.
I have to agree with you. I mean, as good as Jalen Carter is playing, I just think his motor. What did the Mama Watt give those 2 kids growing up? Because whatever it is, she should package it because it's pretty good stuff.
No, no. I mean, I wasn't. I mean, now we were talking before we started recording. They won 10 in a row. If they want to get that top seed and the bye that goes along with it, they're going to have to win their last three games. Even because right now they're tied with the Lions, but the Lions have the tiebreaker,
Right.
better conference record because one of the Lions' losses is to an AFC team. The
And
Lions also
Lions would have to lose one.
if the Eagles win out, the Lions have to lose again, which they
Right.
could. But the Eagles have to win out. The Eagles lose, then the Lions got to lose twice, and now you're asking for a whole lot of help.
Right.
So if they win three more in a row, that would be 13 straight wins. Now you go into the playoffs. If you're going to win the Super Bowl, you're going to have to win at least three or four more games, depending if you get the bye or not. Can you win that many games in a row?
Well,
I guess you can, but
when you look at it in the abstract like that, you would think it's difficult because
yeah,
people think you're due to. But
yeah.
listen, I played for the Stars, who were I believe 1 year we were 18-2, and I can't remember how many games in a row. But if you have the mentality of taking it one game at a time,
Well, the coaches say that, but come
well,
on.
but it's the truth. I mean, that's the way you have to look. Guys like us like to talk about it because
Right.
it's something to talk about. But
Yeah,
it's
but I
really
talked to a lot of players through the years too. They publicly they say, "Oh,
mhm.
we're taking one. We're not looking past Washington." But I would talk to them, just talk to them.
Yeah,
They would be looking up. They'd be just like us. Hey,
yes,
what are the Lions having?
yeah,
We do that.
I get it.
They're human beings too. They're not just
Yes.
robots.
Let's talk about the numbers because I think it's important. When I said the Eagles dominated the game, number-wise, they certainly did. Russell Wilson was only 14 for 24 for 128 yards. Najee Harris, who I really love as a player, 6 carries for 14 yards. And as you said, he fumbled that
Terrible.
pitch. Eagles totally shut down a pretty good running back. Net yards, the Eagles beat them 401 to 163, passing 290 to 128, rushing 131 to 56. Number of plays, 77 to 42, which surprised me a bit. And then what I think is the most meaningless stat in football, the time of possession. The Eagles did dominate that as well, almost doubling the Steelers. Eagles had 39-52 and the Steelers had 20-08. So from a number standpoint, it should not have been as close as it was. But as you said, it was a one possession game later in the game that,
Well, the
and
two
I've seen,
turnovers.
and you and I have seen that a number of times, where a team dominates the game and teams are hanging around. All of a sudden, a late turnover, a fumble, or a pick, or whatever, and the game totally flips. So you're right. It was a dominating performance, but you never really felt like the Eagles had clinched it until they had
Until
that
that
last
fumble and went down
touchdown.
the score.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. I got to say this too, like, because we were critical early, or now we're gone. I can't get. You know what? I can't believe there's only 3 weeks left in the regular season.
It's amazing. Really,
It seems like it wasn't that long ago we were like talking about them,
uh,
whatever, and like I
it
don't
seems like we were doing our
know.
preseason report.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't. It doesn't seem like the draft was that long ago.
Mm-mm.
But anyway, we were very critical of the head coach early in the season for some of his decisions.
Rightfully so. He was making
I
some
agree. Yeah, I
suspect
mean,
moves.
we weren't taking cheap shots. We were just
No,
pointing out
it
that
wasn't just us. It was everybody in the media
everybody,
was
right?
looking at it. Yeah.
Not just locally, nationally as well.
Right.
But now, I mean, again, I can't say anything. He kicked when he was supposed to kick. He went for it. Somebody got to him. So that's all I got to say.
Yeah.
I think it was Vic Fangio.
I think that it was when he did the thing with the yelling at his own fans. I truly believe that Lurie and Roseman brought him in the office and said, "Hey, you can't act like this."
Well, right.
That was around the bye week. The players also went to him and said, "Listen, we want to run the football. We've got the best running back in football." I think that changed their offensive scheme a little bit. And the bye week, what we were saying was it came after week 4, which we thought was a little bit early. Actually, was a blessing because it really righted the ship for
No,
this.
it did.
So,
But I'm not. I mean, yeah, the yelling at the fans and the bringing the kids in and all that. That was just him being goofy. Um, I'm talking about This was a couple weeks after the bye too. I think the Jacksonville game where he did all he could to lose that game.
mm-hmm.
He really did. He did all.
And they almost did.
Yeah, if Trevor Lawrence wasn't
Mm-hmm.
a turnover prone quarterback, I'll be nice and just say turnover prone. Uh, they lose that game. I mean, and I would have been all on Sirianni for trying to, he doesn't take early points.
You're
He
right.
chases the two. Then he tries a 57-yarder when he could have punted him deep.
Mhm.
And then they give the ball, and they got to the 13-yard line. And then Lawrence throws the end zone interception to Dean. But I got to think, and I could be wrong. I'm not there every day like I used to be, but I think Fangio may have gone to him after that game and said, "Hey, listen, kid, I've been around a long time.
Mhm.
I know you're new, relatively new at this stuff. You can't do this crap. You got to. You can't put my defense out there like what you did to me yesterday.
Well,
I can't bail you out every week."
look at what Dan Campbell did yesterday. Now, this is an era where you have to announce your onside
Yes.
kick. It's not like it's a surprise.
No,
He
no.
does it with, I believe, 10 or 12
Oh,
minutes to
12
go in the
minutes.
game. They're only 10 points behind. It's two
And they're
scores.
coming
There's
back.
a lot of, there are a lot of football left to be played. And he announces an onside kick and tries it. And then Mac Hollins, the ex-Eagle wide receiver, almost takes it back for a touchdown. So we had said in previous podcasts that Dan Campbell was going to do these type of things that are eventually going to hurt the team. Now, you never know. They don't kick it, what's going to happen, but it seemed like an odd decision. Let's talk about some
I
of the
think
other.
Campbell played the game for a long time, right?
Yeah. He was. I think he played for
Played
8
for
or
a lot
10
of years.
years. Yeah.
Did he wear a helmet? Because he's nuts. He's just
Well,
flat
wait,
out crazy.
I'm not going to let you
I love
denigrate.
him.
I'm not going to let you denigrate ex-tight ends on the podcast.
No,
Boy,
I love the guy. I think I would love to cover him.
yeah.
He's a
No,
great,
he's a piece of work.
but he's nuts.
He is. He's
I mean, he just does the nuttiest things I've
definitely
ever.
cut from a different cloth
He
for
makes
sure.
Sirianni, even when Sirianni was
Yeah,
doing the crazy things,
yeah.
Campbell outdid him every week with something.
Jake Elliott had a nice bounce back game yesterday, 5 for 5 with his kicks, 2 field goals. None of them were excessively long. I think the long one might have been 41 or 42 yards and
Actually, 3 for 3 because
three extra points.
he
Good.
made a field goal and there was a penalty on Pittsburgh, so they took the points off
That's
the
right.
board and he had
That's
to make
right.
another one.
Yes, good point.
So that was and I was
Uh,
worried about that, by the way. How many times
well,
have you seen a team take points off the board and then they go down?
yeah, I think in that situation it was the right thing to
Right.
do.
No, that was always definitely
Yeah,
the right thing to do. No, I'm not questioning that. I'm
yeah,
just saying, I was especially with Elliott, who's been a little,
yeah.
but that's a good no. Elliott's a great kicker. He's just been having a rough go this year, so it was a good thing to see him make all his kicks.
Defensively, Nakobe Dean with another outstanding performance, 10 tackles. He's all over the field. Nolan Smith and Josh Sweat each had a sack yesterday. Defensively, I thought it was a really outstanding. Now, the Steelers were missing their top wide receiver, Pickens, right? So that certainly limited Pittsburgh as to how they could stretch the field, and the Eagles realized that, and they packed a lot of people at the line of scrimmage, totally took away the running game, and got heat on Russell Wilson. And that's the one thing that I'm more and more impressed with it. They only had a couple sacks yesterday, but they were constantly disrupting the flow of the passing game, which in some cases is as important as getting a sack or two.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, sacks are great, and but sometimes if you make a guy, throw it away, it's not quite as good as a sack, but it's pretty good. Or now they didn't get any picks, but this is the first time the Eagles that Russell Wilson has ever lost to the Eagles. He was 6-0 coming into this game.
But it was
All with
wasn't
Seattle.
there another stat that the Steelers hadn't beaten the Eagles
In
at
Philly
home
since
since like
1965.
65. Yeah,
They've
65.
won 7 Super Bowls since the last time they've won in Philly.
Yeah. So what do you do with that betting information? Russell Wilson never lost. The Eagles never lost to the Steelers. How do you balance that from a
Well,
betting
I think the Wilson thing was the better because he was actually playing. I mean, 65 is a long. I mean, that's so the Eagles have done a lot of things this year in terms of exercising demons, if you want to go there. They had never won in Cincinnati. They won in
right?
Cincinnati. They hadn't won in Dallas in a long time. They won in Dallas. They had never beaten a Russell Wilson quarterback team. They beat a Russell Wilson quarterback team. So they've done things they've never done before.
So I don't want to pick on the guy because he's much richer and much better looking than I am, but Tom Brady's performance as an analyst. Now, listen, I'm going to say this. I did that for years for several networks. It's a much harder job than it looks like because you have to do a lot of research. Now, they get people feeding them stuff where we had to do a lot of the homework by ourselves, but still, You have to be able to assimilate that information in a very conversational tone to where you know what's coming and you know what you're talking about. To me, he hasn't improved that much as a broadcaster. He called Cam Jurgens yesterday, which I guess is the sweetest pronunciation for his name. I don't know, but it was just kind of I don't want to throw stones at the guy, but seemed like a choppy performance for a professional broadcaster for me.
See, I don't listen. I mean, everybody always
You
asks me,
listen to Merrill and Mike, or
no,
you
no,
just watch?
I'm
Oh,
so
okay.
trained by being at games for 30 some years that I watch. I mean, I hear the noise of what they're saying, but I don't, unless
Yeah,
they say something really outrageous, I don't even know what they're saying.
I got
I
you.
just
Good.
watch. I just, and so I don't know. Was he that? I mean, he didn't say anything that I thought was stupid. I mean,
Yeah.
I've heard announcers
No,
say,
not necessarily, but it just, I don't know, there's a flow to when a guy comes in. He knows when to come in and out, depending on the play-by-play guy. To me, it seemed a little bit
choppy.
choppy.
Okay.
But
All right. And you've done
well,
it, so you would have a better feel for that.
the I thought the Steelers got the bad end of the deal when they were flagged for two unsportsmanlike conducts when actually Darius Slay, who I thought the guy number 80 on Pittsburgh, I didn't look up his name before this. That was a legit block, man. Coaches are looking at that and they're saying that's a great job, man. Run him right through the end zone, which he did, and it wasn't a dirty play. And Slay came up swinging. They didn't penalize Slay; they
No,
penalized two Steelers, which was a big deal because that backed
yes,
them up at that
that made
point.
him take a
So
field goal instead of a potential touch. Yeah, I was stunned. I thought for sure it was going to be offsetting
yeah, and
because that,
they said they didn't have an angle or a video of Slay throwing the punches. However, one surfaced on Twitter because somebody was sitting right there. They showed the blow by blow. So that was a tough break for the Steelers. Another tough break for the Eagles was an obvious hip drop tackle near the end of the game on AJ Brown, which is supposed to be outlawed. There was no flag on that, and AJ, got up a little bit gimpy after that play. I would think the Eagles or the league would want to take a look at that, and there's perhaps a fine coming down the road on that.
there could be. We'll
Yeah.
see, yeah. So I'm sure the league will be looking at that. Well, the Eagles will ask the league to look. Well, the Eagles they might not even have to ask. Um,
No, I think the league is aware of that, and
yeah.
they're going to research
You
that.
know what I got to, speaking of injuries or guys walk, and this is what makes me mad about the Eagles organization, not the players. There's nothing to do with players. This is their organization. Why do they lie? Why do they feel? I'm seriously. Why do they have to lie?
Because they can.
But they get exposed. I mean,
Or
I did hear Brady.
what was this lie?
Well, the girl who was the sideline reporter yesterday. I don't remember.
Oh, yesterday was it Christina Pink? I don't remember, to be
Whoever it was,
honest with
it doesn't matter. They're all the same.
you. Yeah.
Um,
Oh, easy,
no, I didn't mean. I
easy.
mean, I didn't mean it in a bad way. I didn't mean. No, I didn't mean woman or all. I meant the sideline reporters are all the same.
Yeah,
I don't.
okay, good,
I'm not a
good.
big.
Clarification. Yeah, we don't want nasty
I'm not a
emails.
big fan of sideline. I don't.
Yeah, I
Anyway,
got you.
they're supposed to talk to Sirianni at halftime and Tomlin at halftime, whatever. And Barkley did not play. Barkley took a pretty good hit from Fitzpatrick in the second quarter.
Yeah, didn't play much after that
Didn't
in
play
the
much
second
after that.
quarter.
And you saw him. I believe he did go into the 10.
No report. Right.
Well, the woman reporter, talks to Sirianni, comes back and says, I asked Nick Sirianni about Saquon Barkley, and he told me he's fine, he's not injured. That Gainwell was out there because he's our 2 minute back.
Mm-hmm.
And both Brady and was it Burkhardt that was doing play?
Yes, Kevin Burkhardt. Yeah.
Wait a minute, that's so crazy. I did hear that. They said, "Boy, there's Barkley's definitely something wrong with him."
Well, Gainwell does play a lot in
Yes, he
minutes.
does.
He
But Barkley
does.
was there. Barkley
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
shaken. He didn't go in the tent to what he go in the tent for to get the popcorn.
What what
No,
do you
just
think?
say, hey, he got a little shaken up, but he's okay. Don't
Yeah.
lie. I
Yeah,
mean,
well, you know how coaches are with injuries. They don't want to give you any information. Hey, what do you think about the MVP race now? They're talking about
now,
Josh Allen
it's right.
after a big game, but I mean Saquon's got to be back in the conversation.
He's
This
in the
is probably
conversation.
it's gonna go week to week. Whoever has a good game is now going to be the favorite. But I do think all sides are pointing to Josh Allen as
Yeah,
the MVP
I
this
used
year.
to have a vote for that every it rotated. One year I'd have an MVP vote. Next year I'd have a rookie of the year vote, coach,
Hmm.
whatever. If I had a vote this year, nothing against Barkley. I mean, he's having a great year, but
Hmm.
if you look at the term most valuable, right? Valuable. If you take Josh Allen off the Bills, they're probably a 4-win team.
Mm-hmm.
Barkley has meant a lot to the Eagles, but you saw
Mm-hmm.
yesterday they won. They played pretty well and won with him not really being
Right.
a big impact on the game. Let's put it that way. Now Barkley could get Offensive Player of the Year still.
Mm-hmm.
Two different awards.
Do they normally mix that up if
Oh
one guy
yeah,
gets the
the same guy never
MVP?
gets both.
Okay.
It's
Well,
a
that
way of giving two guys.
listen, that would be great. A great start to his Eagles career. Let's talk about teams that are on the rise. And as we go to the playoffs, I'll go through the playoff picture and tell everybody where we stand and where the league stands. Improving teams, the Packers, a team that you cover. They're looking good. Boy, that was a really great performance at Seattle, which is a tough place to play.
Yeah, they got a little healthier last night. They were missing some guys. They still don't have Jair Alexander back, their top corner, um, but they got their safety back. They have a rookie linebacker, Edgerrin Cooper, who I loved in the draft,
Hmm.
and they got him in the second round. He's a difference maker. He played, he missed 2 or 3 weeks with a hamstring. Came back last night, had a sack, an interception, 2 tackles for a loss. He was all over the place. He's a good player out of Texas A&M. I liked him. I saw him play against Alabama last year. Alabama, Texas A&M. Alabama won the game, but he had like 3 sacks. Broke up a. I mean, I watched him and I said, man, that kid. If you're doing that against Alabama's offensive line,
Yeah.
that's a pretty good effort. So yeah, so the Packers they're a team. They lost to the Lions twice. The last game it came down to the field goal at the buzzer to lose. Yeah, they'll be in the mix. That whole North is. I mean, the Vikings are good too.
Yeah, well, I want to talk about another team, Houston, who I believe clinched the division yesterday,
Well,
even
the
though they're
AFC
only
is almost set.
only 9-5. Yeah, the AFC actually has 4 teams that are definitely in.
The other
But
two are almost.
Houston as a team on the rise. What do you think about their chances in the playoffs? Could they make some noise?
I don't think so. I mean, maybe.
They could win a
I,
game, right? They could win a
yeah, it
game.
depends who they get in the first
Hmm.
round. I just don't think they could beat. Well, they play Kansas City this week, so we'll find out a lot more about them this week. Houston, they're good. I mean, they're good. They're a good team. They're not. I don't think they're as good as Kansas City, Buffalo, um, Baltimore. I don't think they're in that. I think they're the top 3 teams in the AFC or
Yeah, if the
Buffalo.
if the season's ended today, by the way, the Eagles would be the number 2 seed. They would
Right.
play Washington
Yeah,
in the
for a third
first
time.
round. Detroit would get the bye, obviously. The Rams would play Minnesota, and
That'd be a good
Tampa
game.
Bay would play Green Bay. If
Yeah.
the season was over today, Kansas City would get the bye in the AFC. Houston and Baltimore would be first round. The winner of that game would play Kansas City. Pittsburgh would be at Denver, and Buffalo would be at the LA.
So Denver would be at Pittsburgh.
Denver,
Would be at Pittsburgh.
you're right. Denver would be at Pittsburgh, yes. And then the Chargers
Chargers.
would be at Buffalo.
Yeah.
That's the way it would shake out if it was today. Now, the teams that are already in AFC, the Chiefs have clinched a spot. The
Bills.
Bills, the Steelers, and the Texans are all in.
And
In
the
the
Ravens are
NFC,
all but in, basically. I mean,
the Ravens are all but in, right? In the NFC, the Lions are in, the Eagles are in, obviously, and the Vikings are in.
the
In
Vikings
the
are. Oh yeah, because of Seattle. Right.
Vikings are definitely in.
Yeah, Green Bay put Minnesota in last night, which is kind of fun.
That's right. Followed
Green Bay needs
by
one more
the
win.
Buccaneers, who are most likely in, the Rams, who are playing really good football right now, the Packers, and then the Commanders.
Well, that West is wide open. The Rams and Seattle right now are tied.
Yep.
The Rams have the tiebreaker because they beat them head to head, but they play the last game of the year. The Rams
The,
played Seattle the last game of the year. That will probably be for the West title.
yeah, Seattle right now is 8-6. The Cardinals are 7-7.
And they got an outside chance too.
The
I mean,
Falcons are 6-7.
they play tonight.
Let's
Falcons
talk
play the
about
Raiders
let's
tonight.
talk about the demise of the 49ers. Now, albeit they've lost so many
Everybody.
skill position players. I mean, they just
And
they get.
defense.
I'm surprised that they're not finding a way defensively. I thought they would be better. I mean, Purdy kind of showed when he doesn't have those weapons. I don't think he's a top tier quarterback. Do you pay Purdy a big contract? I mean, I do not personally.
I don't pay him what the top money, but you got to give him something.
Well, you don't because you can go in another direction.
Where are you going to go? I mean, quarterbacks don't fall off trees.
Darnold's going to be
Maybe if I'm
available.
Minnesota, I'm keeping Darnold.
I am too,
I'm
but
trading
they're
McCarthy for
stacked
whoever.
up. Oh, you're going to trade McCarthy?
Yes.
Really?
Oh,
Interesting.
yeah, I got to recoup my law. I got to do something.
Well, well,
I'm
you don't
keeping.
know.
If I'm Minnesota, I'm keeping Darnold.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue with that. It's just that
And if I'm Darnold, I want to stay in Minnesota because listen, I was a bum everywhere else. I got
it's
maybe Kevin O'Connell. It's a perfect marriage. Why get divorced?
it's obviously a good spot for him. So Mark, if you had to predict the rest of the way, do the Eagles drop a game before the playoffs? If they do, who do they lose to? And you're saying that you would rather see them lose a game that'll give them a better
Well,
chance to run the table?
it's crazy to say that, right? I mean, you never
No,
want.
I get
And you
the
play,
logic.
right?
It makes sense logically that
Yeah, because how
you
can you
think
win
that might
16
help,
in a
but
row,
it's
17 in a row?
so the bubble doesn't burst right at the wrong time.
Yeah. And yesterday would have been the perfect AFC team. They're not going to lose. They're not losing out. I've seen good Eagle teams. I'll say this through my years covering the team and even watching after. I've seen good, very good Eagles teams play poorly in Washington for whatever reason. But I still think they beat Washington. Hey, listen, that's a team that's vastly improved. They were the second worst team in football last year.
Hmm.
They're going to make the playoffs. Dan Quinn
Hmm.
deserves a lot of credit for what he's done with
Well,
that
he's
team.
got to be in the Coach of the Year
I would,
conversation for
I mean, him
sure.
and O'Connell, it's one or the other, in my opinion. I mean, you can
Yeah,
make an argument for about 10 coaches this year, but I think it's Quinn or O'Connell.
we could take
Um,
Eberflus off of the Coach of the Year consideration.
I thought about him for no, I
Okay,
didn't.
all right.
And yeah, I wouldn't. Or our
That's
boy
terrible.
Doug.
That's terrible. Guy just lost his job. I'm making fun. That's terrible.
Our
I
boy
got.
Doug Peterson's not going to get many votes this
I
year.
know, boy. You think he's not going to survive, is he?
Nah,
No. You
but
think he gets another job? Head coaching job?
maybe,
Hmm.
maybe.
Maybe he does the Belichick route and goes to a college. Hey,
Um,
$50
speaking
million. People are asking why Belichick did it. $50 million.
of,
50 million. Yeah, I can
Doug
see
would
it.
be. You know what? That's funny you say that. I think Doug would be a good college
He would
coach.
be an excellent college coach. Well, first of all, he's a good football coach. He's a good guy. He knows the game. He's a good football coach. Obviously, you don't win a Super Bowl unless
Right.
you're a good football coach. But
He would be. Some guys are college, some are pro,
mhm.
and some and you wonder. I could see. I think Doug would, especially at a Southern college, where he goes into the people's house and gives them the whole speech, and the kid,
Yeah,
I want to go play for him.
yeah,
You
but
know,
you don't see Belichick going into somebody's living room and trying to coax
well,
a
he's going
kid.
to have to. Going to have
Well,
to now.
do you see him? I would love to have a video of that because that's not his name. What do you think's behind that, by the way? Here's what I think. I think he put feelers out. And in
Mhm.
this day and age of teams that want to keep control of their franchise, there wasn't the interest that he was hoping for. He wants to coach. There's a school, a nationally recognized school, waving $50 million. Why wouldn't you do it? Now, that doesn't mean the climate might change, and the Jets, if they struggle again or whatever team, the Bears, they come back.
I
Hey,
would love to see.
we got to do Belichick. I mean, he's out there, so.
I think he set up his son too.
Yeah, his son is going to be the heir apparent, right?
Yeah,
That's another
I think he
motivator.
worked out a deal with North Carolina where he's going to bring his son on staff as whatever title he gives them. Listen, he's 72.
Yeah.
He's not going to do this for 10 more years, I don't think. So he coaches Carolina for a couple years and then hands it off to his son, and then his son has his son set for life.
He's younger than you think because he's dating like a 28-year-old. So he's got
24.
24. Really? I wonder what they talk about. They probably don't
I
talk
don't
that
think they even
much
talk. I
anyway.
don't think
So
I got a question for you as a former player.
what's that?
You did you see what happened in the Thursday night game last week, the Rams 49er game with Devondre Campbell?
That's unconscionable. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the mortal sin. Not only did
Have
he
you ever, in
release?
all your playing days,
No.
basketball or football, ever seen that happen? I've
Well,
never seen it as a writer covering it.
listen, back in my day, if you did anything that was construed as against the team, you were waived immediately. It didn't really matter who you are. That's the mortal sin in football. Not only did I think it was the right thing for San Francisco to waive him, even though he's a good player, if I'm looking at him, do I want a guy
No.
that quit on their team, on my team? The answer to that is no, and I don't care really how good you are physically.
So you've never even there's never been anything even close.
I've never seen
I
anything like
haven't.
it. I know it's
I mean,
it's
I've seen
crazy.
guys, they're having problems, and again, we don't know what goes on in the players. They're players. They're human beings, just like you and
Right.
I. They're not robots. They're not
Right.
machines. They look like machines sometimes because they're so
There's
athletic.
emotions. It's an emotional
So, but I mean,
game. I get it.
if he had something going on, and we don't know because he hasn't spoken yet. You go to the coach during the week and say, "Hey, coach, listen, I got all this," and then you make him inactive for the game.
Well, I
You
think
say personal reasons, whatever.
yeah.
You don't dress for the game and then not go in.
Yeah. No, I
I've
agree.
never seen it.
It might have ended his
And
career,
Lane Johnson,
unfortunately.
remember Lane Johnson a couple years ago? He went away for a couple
Well, he
weeks.
walked away because of a mental health illness.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So but he let the team know. They excused him.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, that stuff
Well,
happens.
he didn't let him know at the beginning. The Eagles didn't know where he was, and Big Dom actually tracked him down. Yeah. So, but anyway, I didn't mention this at the beginning, but we record this podcast at Sweet Recording Studios in Mount Laurel. Joe Gangemi at Sweet Recording will take care of you. If you want to do a podcast, go to sweetrecording.com and check it out. Gateway Mortgage is our main sponsor of this event, and Chris Wilhelm is a good guy, Eagles fan, has a great mortgage company, 856-810-1222. Contact Chris Wilhelm at Gateway Mortgage. The Eagles cruise is going to launch from Tampa on April 12th. Myself, Sean Landetta, Vince Papali, Byron Evans, Gary Cobb, a bunch of Eagles will be on that cruise. If you'd like to take part in that, use the promo code Dunek for $300 off of your cabin and join us on what should be a really good time. And JerseyMan magazine, the January issue is coming out. Mark wrote a great story, as he always does, and we've got some great information. That magazine will be available for free on our website. Check out JerseyManMagazine.com. All right, Mark. Well, next week we have the Washington Commanders. I never really know what to call this. I want to say the Redskins. I stopped in the National Football League.
They might go back to that. There's rumors going to go back.
Yeah, I understand that, but we'll see what happens, and hopefully we'll have a report on an 11-game winning streak, and then we can really panic about the bubble bursting during playoffs. But for Mark Eckel, this is Ken Dunek. Thanks for everybody for watching the Bird Brains with Ken and Mark. We'll see you next time.